Extreme Collectibles here, new acquisition to the Extreme Collection. Before we start off, please hit subscribe, please hit that bell so you know whenever a new statue gets in. Also, there's various other content I'm playing with. You know what should go right there. So let's just get into this review of this 1/10 scale Iron Studios piece. Extreme Collectibles here with Iron Studios 1/10 scale Wasp statue. Statue, toy, collectible, all the same. So I purchased this piece because I have the 1/10 Ant-Man scale. So go check that out. There's a review on that. I have a big 1/4 section Avengers collection. So there was no Ant-Mans I really liked, but I thought, you know, 1/10 Ant-Man would fit in, especially with the growing factor in the statue he has. And I liked him so much I decided to dive in and get the Wasp statue as well. It was on back order, but I hit the wait list and I was lucky enough to get it. $110 plus 20 bucks in shipping. Came in one small box. The base is one piece, Wasp, and then Wasp has 4 wings that you have to actually insert, and it's kind of touchy. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. And 2 heads, so 2 portraits. First is the masked portrait right here, and the other is the unmasked portrait, which I personally like both of them, so I don't know which one I'm going to display it with. And how she scales with Ant-Man, here's another picture just to kind of give you an idea. So I was never into Ant-Man and Wasps in the comics. A few comics I had Ant-Man. I've never seen Wasp in the comics. But the MCU is what introduced me, you know, full on. And I really enjoyed both films. I think I've always liked Paul Rudd since he was Crap Bag on Friends. And some of you got that reference right there. And Evangeline Lilly, fabulous actress. Obviously got to know her in Lost. You know, it was funny in Lost. If you ever Lost was really big the same time Grey's Anatomy was, and in Lost, Jack Shepherd, Dr. Shepherd was one of the lead characters, and then so was in Grey's Anatomy, Dr. Shepherd. And then also the one girl, I can't remember her name, she worked for Benjamin on Lost. Her last name was Burke, and she was a doctor. So there was a Dr. Shepherd and a Dr. Burke on Lost, and then a Dr. Shepherd and a Dr. Burke were the 2 main characters on Grey's Anatomy. Just kind of one of those weird things that goes through my head. But always really enjoyed the films. Endgame, I don't know when this is going to air, but Endgame is coming out in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So it'll be really interesting to see how that goes. I don't think Iron Studios does a made-to-order on their pieces, so I don't know how many of these are actually made, but it's a very, very cool piece. I really like the, this is my second 1/10 scale. I really like these. I think if I wasn't big into quarter scale or third scale, I would do a whole line. I know quite a few people are on the Avengers Iron Studios. I think it's a really smart way to go. So jumping right into the concept and design of the statue, very similar to Ant-Man. They have not the exact same base, but the same conceptual base as you see right here. So they're on some kind of concrete cement parking lot, and they're just growing or just getting bigger, and there's an explosion because there's so much power and so much force from them jumping forward. And it's a little bit different on each statue. One of the things we'll talk about with paint is I don't know if it was a production difference or if it was a specified concept difference. But she's jumping out. She's kind of in an angelic but a dynamic action pose, ready to attack. Her wings are spread. She's reaching out. She's lifting off. She's taking off. But very cool, and they just display really well together. So I like what they did. It kind of leaves you to your own imagination on what's going on. So with that, you can kind of fit it with any type of display you want, which is really smart on Iron Studios' part. And I only have, besides the Ant-Man, I only have one other Iron Studios piece, and there's a review on that too, actually. It's the Juggernaut Wolverine diorama, which is really, really good and really, really bad at the same time. So I am getting their quarter scale Thanos and Iron Spider-Man, which obviously I will review, but it'll be interesting to see how they do on those. Production pictures look great, so. Jumping into the paint and sculpt of this piece, so really on the base, very, very similar to Ant-Man if you've watched that review. The bottom has kind of this, around the sides has this dirt aspect to kind of insinuate this is underground, and it looks okay. Paint and texture are a little flat, but it doesn't look bad for a 1/10 scale. The concrete looks really good for a 1/10 scale, and I said this in the Ant-Man review, it reminds me of Sideshow's Deadpool Heat Seeker, the explosion and the pieces of concrete. There's some good texturing, some good layers in the different grays and whites they used in there. And then this is the difference, so the explosion, the fire, is a lot lighter than Ant-Man is, and I suspect this is a production, I wouldn't say snafu, but I would say difference. So it's not as dark, and I actually prefer Ant-Man's a little bit better, not only the paint, but the directionality and the sculpt of it. Moving up to Wasp, she's really cool. Tons of texture. You see right here on her boots, just look really good. They spared no detail on the stitching and the texture and the colorization. It's kind of this dark blue throughout, but it looks like there's some variation in there, but it's kind of hard to see. And that same texture and sculpt goes all the way up her legs to show different aspects of her costume. There's some red around the stitching, some really cool knee pads, and I really like what they did. I think it's a great job on such a small statue, which is one of the reasons I would actually say these 1/10 pieces, doing a whole line of them. I think Master Spitter is. So if you know who I'm talking about, go check out his channel. He keeps airing some of those reviews, and I can't watch them, you know, unless I'm alone and relaxed. So. Moving back to Wasp, moving up her body, her ass looks good. Again, they have that same texture, and they show the different seams in the pants. And then her wings. So her wings are plastic, and you can kind of tell when you look really, really close. But from 12 inches away, it doesn't look so bad. And I think it's cool that they put the veination of the wings, so that's very accurate as to what an insect would be. And then her pack that everything plugs into looks really cool. I like the different, it's almost a faded gray they used on there. And then moving to her torso, again, some of that great texturing and fine detail with the different seam lines. And this metal part almost looks like it's a mesh, which I don't believe is accurate to the movie. I don't think it was supposed to be meshy, if that's a word, but it looks really good. I really like it. And then moving up to her helmet, she has kind of that similar mesh on the top. But it's darker, and the helmet very similar to Ant-Man's, a lot of the same coloration. It's reflective, which is cool, and just like Ant-Man, you can see her eyes on the inside, which is something they definitely didn't have to do, and I think it's just a knock out of the park with her helmeted portrait. And then looking at her unmasked portrait, a lot of likeness to the actress Evangeline Lilly. I think they did a good job for a 1/10 scale. It's hard to get that much detail, you know, something around her cheekbones or her eyebrows. And then lastly, the arms on Wasp look really, really cool. Again, some padding on the elbows and that same texture, and then some wrist gauntlets to control the mask. And then the gloves look fantastic for a 1/10 scale. Looks really, really good in detail. So those are my summary on the thoughts. I think this piece and the Ant-Man piece actually are going to go for quite a bit because they fit both 1/10 and larger collections if you want. It doesn't look strange. So if you have a chance and you want this, pick it up. Fantastic piece. So really appreciate you guys watching. Please let me know what you think of Iron Studios 1/10 line. If you have any of the other pieces, please give me a like, please give me a comment, because I need money. Poor. Thank you. Take care.